A few years back, I picked up an odd game called Past Cure at a local hobby shop. I remember the clerk saying that he had just placed the game on the shelf and had never heard of it. Well, neither had I, and those are often the kinds of games that I'm interested in. I can often find some hidden gems. So I was kinda hyped, until I looked at the Steam and Metacritic ratings. Oh no. Past Cure stars a man named Ian, who used to be a soldier. A few years ago, he was suddenly abducted, and when released from his captivity, he found himself to suddenly have some supernatural powers. He gets a call from his brother, who tells him that he found some group that is pushing a new type of drug, and now Ian sets out to confront this group, thinking that it might give him some answers on his past. The game picks up with Ian in some sort of nightmare. Creatures that look like department store mannequins from hell stalk Ian, and all he can do is shoot them with a simple pistol that he picks up early on. Most of these mannequins only take 1 or 2 shots to shatter. However, if any of them get close to you, it's an instant death, requiring you to resume from a checkpoint. They throw Ian down to the ground and stomp his head in a half-assed sort of way, or spin him around if they approach him from the back, and slay him with a simple throat punch. It's kind of underwhelming if you ask me. This initial nightmare stage acts as a sort of tutorial, but it drags on for far too long. Ammo is also very limited, so if you run out, you're pretty screwed. You do have access to a melee strike, but it is ineffective against these porcelain-looking creatures. In addition, when you die, there is a lengthy loading sequence, so you'll be seeing a lot of this screen. The lengthy loading and overextended first stage tip you off to what you might be in for as a gaming experience, but truthfully, it starts out even earlier than this. The title screen screams low budget, and the menu feels like something that you'd see from first-time developers on the PS2. In addition, when you go into the options, all of the volume sliders are near muted levels. I mean, this might seem minor, but most games feature the volume sliders near the louder sides, which I kinda need. I'm half deaf as it is. Anyway, once you finally get through the first level, you are thrown into a beach house in the present day. Apparently Ian was really dreaming, with these creatures assaulting him in his dreams. You get a bit more of the story, and Ian has to lumber around the house complete with some surprising frame drops. Near the end of the stage, he is harassed by a mysterious man and more of the ceramic humanoids. After all of this, you get another stage which features more tutorial areas, this time focusing on Ian's supernatural abilities. There are 2 of them, being able to project his mind outside of his body to view his surroundings, and slowing down time. Believe it or not, it's here where I started to break. I'm fine with puzzles, but when the game refuses to give you even a hint on how to solve them, then I get a little bit frustrated. Here's what I mean. You first learn of the mind projection, then are given on-screen tips on how to move and use a mind blast to interact with objects. Alright, fine. But then you move into the next room and simply see 3 floating spheres. Okay? Do I fling the balls towards that red border? No, that redness is just how far you can float around before returning back to your head. Do I need to strike the balls against each other? Nope, don't need to do that either. I spent probably an hour trying to figure this out and just couldn't. So I thought maybe my game was glitched. And because the story was at least somewhat interesting to me, I decided to spend $30 on the Steam version. That's right, a full $30 because I really wanted to review this game. Guess what? The Steam version started in Japanese. What? Why in the hell did Past Cure on PC start in Japanese? I clearly bought the game in English, and there was absolutely nothing on the Steam page to designate that it was only in Japanese. Thanks to Google Translate on my phone, in which I literally held up my phone to the monitor to do a rough translation, I was able to get to the options screen and flip the language back to my native English. Roughly 15 minutes later, I was back to where I had left off. This isn't a good sign. This game is only 7 stages long. By skipping scenes, I was able to get to the puzzle in question in the middle of level 3 15 minutes later. And guess what? Same puzzle, same confusion. I will admit that I was able to figure out the puzzle on the PC version. I found that by maximizing my Mind Blast power and hitting the sphere, it glowed. You simply had to do this with all of these globes before the glow disappeared, and then the way opened. What a stupid effing puzzle to figure out! So I went back to the PS4 version, since the game was much more suited to controller play than keyboard and mouse. Cleared the puzzle, and moved on. The game really doesn't improve from here though. The game has a mixture of puzzles, shooting action, and 4 stealth areas. You are free to use the mine abilities as often as you'd like, with the catch that if the blue bar drains, you start to go insane, with that being the drawback that Ian learned occurs if he relies on his powers too much. In order to combat this, he can ingest what the game simply calls the blue pills. What is this, the Matrix? He also gets syringes to replace his health, which you'll need because Ian can't take a hit very well. Oh, and he'll seemingly die out of nowhere at times. Like at this puzzle where I went onto a platform and just keeled over. Was it because of the electricity and the water? I have no idea, but I was definitely stepping on that box for a few seconds before I croaked, and I didn't see an indication that it was hurting me. This game sucks. And those mannequins? You'll be seeing them a lot. They will always kill you in one hit, which makes me question why you have a health meter in the first place. Even worse, some puzzles make these guys appear endlessly, yet the game doesn't give you extra ammo to accommodate this. So figure out and solve that puzzle quickly. This happens at the end of the 3rd stage, where you have 4 Atlas statues and 4 mannequins that appear in infinite numbers. What the hell do I do? I just couldn't figure it out. So as much as I didn't want to, I looked up a guide. Or at least, I tried to. I also did this in the puzzle I talked about earlier with those orbs. But guess what? Apparently the game was patched at some point to extend the gameplay, and more puzzles and areas were added in, including the globes and this current one. Because of this, almost all of the guides reference the earlier versions of the game, making these guides essentially useless nowadays. I found one video on YouTube that featured a playthrough of the game with the version that I owned. Thankfully, this helped me learn that I simply had to hit the statues and make them all glow. Did I need to trap the freaks in the cages? I don't know, but I did because the video did. The gunplay doesn't fare any better than the puzzle areas. The aiming feels stiff, and the human enemies that are shooting back at you don't flinch when getting hit. Even worse, many of them feel like snipers, hitting you at impossible ranges, not allowing you to properly line up a shot. There's a very limited amount of weapons available, so it's not even fun to try out new guns. Even odder, the game occasionally has a bug in which you swap weapons, but the old icon still shows in the HUD. Am I carrying a pistol or a submachine gun? Because the HUD is clearly showing the wrong thing. Speaking of bugs, what the hell is going on here? Was this game even tested? I should never be able to view the stage's geometry like this, in this day and age. And that's not all. Occasionally when reaching a checkpoint, the whole game locks up for a few seconds, like it's trying to remember how to save a file. And when it's saving or loading, the game tells you on the bottom left, but it simply says save or load. I get English may not have been the developer's main language, but everything else in the game seemed fine, so why this might have been skipped confuses me to no end. There's one last thing about the gameplay I need to touch on. The stealth. It's just as bad as everything else. Enemies tend to notice you regardless if you are crouched down or not, and one stage even forces you to use stealth or get an immediate game over. You do have a few seconds to attempt to kill everyone in the room if the alarm is tripped, so there is that, and honestly, I've had to do this for almost every room. Yet there is a section where you're supposed to steal a key from someone and then find an elevator ride to the executive levels or some BS like that. It's here where I gave up playing. I can normally steal the key, but there are so many guards that I cannot escape without being caught. There are minimal areas to hide in, and I have no idea where the elevator actually was. There were a few times where I had a few seconds to kill the final guard, but I just couldn't figure out where the hell he was. This was the breaking point. This is when I said, screw this, I'm done. I just couldn't bring myself to keep playing this horrible thing called a game. This is a shame, too, because I was seriously invested in the story. It was a little bit horror, a little bit thriller, and I wanted to know what was going to happen. Alas, that will probably never occur, as I had no motivation to keep going in a game that had broken stealth segments, infuriating firefights, and AI that occasionally has an IQ lower than the dump I just took.
Come on, then. Come on, then. Come on. Oh, you've had it now. Come on, come on.
The graphics looked like they were taken from an early PS3 era game. Frame rate issues popped up at times. You can look outside of the level when your back is against the wall, and some texture issues that really shouldn't exist in a PS4 game are here. People, grass should not look like this anymore. I should not see individual square pixels here, especially in a cutscene. Past Cure is an absolute dumpster fire. Even after seeing those ratings on Steam, I was not expecting it to be this bad. I don't typically give too much mind to reviews, but this time, that negative rating is justified. It's really a shame too, as the game makes some decent attempts at horror, and again, I really wanted to know Ian's story. But the sum of its parts don't give Past Cure a full package, and this is best left on the bottom of the bargain bin, never to be touched. And for the record, I was able to get the Steam version refunded, so I got my $30 back. It's just a shame that I'm still out to $20 for the PS4 disc. Final score, 2 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.